Hey guys, I'm going to do an impromptu video here. This is for the beginning of Season 3. I know a lot of people are starting to play League for the first time here, might be doing qualifiers, and they might be a little bit lost or confused about the etiquette and what you might want to go ahead and do in the new Season 3 ranked conquest or League conquest or whatever it's called now. So, we're going to go ahead and take a look at that. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is explain a little things about etiquette here. So, it's a little bit different than your regular casual conquest in the aspect of if you call ADC, jungle, solo, whatever, it's not really determined by the order of what you call it in the lobby. If you are the top pick, it means you have the highest elo on your team, or you're theoretically the best player, and what that means is that that person should have priority in picking their role. So if your top player is an ADC, but you also happen to play ADC primarily, generally you're going to want to forfeit that role to that player. Of course, there are some exceptions here. Maybe if you're qualifying for the first time and you play ADC and you happen to be top elo, but Barracuda happens to be under you because it's his first game that he's playing for this season 2, you might want to consider letting Barracuda play ADC. Now, that's not to say I haven't seen Barracuda feed his brains out when he's playing ADC, but statistically it's probably your best bet if you want to win the game. Now, there are going to be situations where you are one of the last two picks. Generally, the bottom pick's always going to be your support, unless there's some kind-hearted soul in your lobby who plays support and they main it, in which case, good for you, I guess. Unless you like support, in which case, not so great for you in those awkward lobbies when you get two support mains. So, if you are on one of those bottom two pick positions, and let's say solo and guardian is open, generally you want to let the fourth pick have the solo, and fifth pick will take guardian. Now, there are some scumbags, and they will go ahead and take the role from you, in which case I recommend just playing support and helping out your team. Now, with that in mind, you also don't want to bring any negativity from previous games into your lobby. So, if you lost and your team went 0-100, no one really cares. No one wants to see that in lobby chat. No one wants to hear who's going to be the feeder this game. And if you lost your last 10 games in a row, it's probably because of you. I'm not to say that there aren't situations where you can have DCs 10 games in a row and it might leave you in a salty attitude. But don't carry that over to your new team. They're happy. They want to win, generally. So just keep that in mind. It's always a great idea to bring a positive attitude, and if you're in a curse call, just try and be communicative. If you don't have a microphone or you don't feel like using a microphone, that's okay. Don't use it, but at least listen to calls to the best of your ability. And if there's a player who's doing really well, it's always a good idea to listen to them. If your ADC is like 20-0, you should probably listen to their calls because they probably have a good idea of what they're going to be doing for the rest of the game. With that in mind, if there's a 0-20 jungler who keeps on ganking and feeding lane, you might not want to follow them in and keep dying. So with that off the table, we'll talk a little bit about the picks and bans here. So I am on picksandbans.com. They have the Smite simulator here. It does need a little bit of update for the second banning phase on this season. Essentially, you get a first ban. Amaterasu is automatically banned, but you also have 2 bans for the Order side, 2 bans for the Chaos side, and then both teams pick 3 gods, and then there's supposed to be another 2 bans, but the website only has 1 currently. So we'll just keep that in mind, and we can pretend that we'll have another ban during the second banning phase. So if your first pick, that means you're on the Order side of the map, or the more angelic, the looking side of the map. And what that means is that your top elo has the highest elo, or your team's elo is higher than the opposing team on the Chaos side. That means that you will get less TP when you win, but is it less TP when you win? Yeah, you get less TP when you win, and you lose more when you lose. So if you're on the first pick position, you really want to win the game, because no one likes losing 16 TP. It always sucks. On the Chaos side, it means the exact opposite. Now on the Order side, you do get the first pick and the first ban, or the first ban and the first pick, should I say, since that's the order in which you do it. And the Chaos side, you get the second and third picks. So we'll go over a couple of the more contested picks, the more popular picks and bans here real quick. So we'll start with Ravana, or Raven. Raven is probably going to be the most contested god in the game right now. His 2 at max rank, I believe it's a 10-second cooldown for pretty much a purification bees and Aegis built into 1, plus it does damage, plus you move. Yeah, that ability is really broken, and I'm kind of surprised he is in League, but Amaterasu is not yet. Amaterasu is pretty strong, but Robin is pretty broken right now. So he's going to be someone you're really going to want to ban. Now, from the first pick position, you could potentially look at not banning Robin, not banning powerful gods, and then looking to get them as the first pick. That's a very viable strategy, and you might want to look to do that if gods like Robin are your number one option. So Quan, another very powerful pick there. Someone you probably want to be banning consistently with the buffs to mage items, his scaling. He could really blow up someone very quickly, even a very tanky target, without a lot of effort, and then fly out. So you might want to look at banning him a lot. If you're a jungler, you might want to look at playing him. Other top picks here. Chyron is very strong as an ADC. Giannis very strong as a mid laner. Main reasons, Chyron, he has a built-in self-heal, very powerful ultimate that's great for boxing in lane, has the most ridiculous escape / chase of any ADC in the game. So someone you might want to get rid of if you are not playing ADC or if you don't want to play him as an ADC. Giannis, same kind of thing, very high mobility, very high damage. Thor even, again, a very strong jungler, very great jungle presence from anywhere, could come up out of nowhere for a gank. So you might want to look between those kind of gods, maybe even Bellona because she's just a generic strong solo laner. But let's say maybe you want to go ahead and ban Giannis out, you don't want to go ahead and deal with him, and let's say they want to go ahead and ban out Chyron, they don't want to deal with them. So you're in the first pick position here. Again, you're going to want to look for strong gods. A lot of people like Khepri. I'm not the biggest fan. In lower elo, I think he's stronger because he's very great at baiting the enemy team and doing stupid things and chasing kills. At a higher league of play, if Quan's on the table, I don't like picking at Khepri because of the execute being very strong and consistent as opposed to Thanatos'. But again, it's all going to be what your team wants, what you want to play. Now, Athena, I also think is a very strong pick. So picking up something like that for your support is always a great play. It can set up a lot of plays. It can set up a lot of comps. He has global presence. Always a great first pick. On the enemy team here, you can look at something like Khepri now if you want another support that has very strong lane pressure. Khepri clears the lane very quickly. He's very great at setting up kills for his ADC. So you can do that, or you can look to kind of counter what your opponents have picked. Now Athena, there's not really a lot of gods that can counter Athena. You can pick an Aries, and Aries is very strong right now with the nerf to purification beads. You can look at something like that because he can actually ultimate Athena as she's ulting, pull her back all the way into lane, and it's an interaction. It's not exactly a counter, but that's something you can look at. And really one of the things you want to do when you're picking and banning is look at what your opponent's picking, try and either counter pick it, or look at what your team's picking and try and complement it. That's really the secret to a strong draft here. So let's say our team does want Aries. So we picked Aries. He's he's a Guardian with very weak lane clear. All he has really is the 3. You could use the 1 to clear wave, but it's not really a great use of that. So as opposed to Athena, who has a dash that does damage, she has the reach proc, she has the shield wall, all those abilities to clear wave, in addition to having the utility of the taunt and the global ultimate. So if we're picking Aries here, we might also want to look to pick an ADC who's going to complement him. So someone like a Neith would be very strong. She clears lane very efficiently. They are very good together at getting a very early kill in the game. Other gods you might look at, Medusa, pretty strong lane clear, could also complement Aries pretty well with a stun combo out of chains. And trying to think who else might work here. Those are probably going to be your best 2 options there. So you might want to look, Hoey could work as well. I don't think his clear is quite as good as Medusa or Neith, but you might want to pick one of them. So maybe you would go with a Neith because now you have the global ultimate on Neith that could kind of counteract Athena's possible rotations, and you also have good lane pressure against an Athena who does help clear the wave a lot faster than an Aries will. Now on this position, you might want to go ahead and look to pick up a mid laner or a jungler, since you do have 2 picks here to go ahead and work with, and figure out what your mid jungler combo is going to be. So let's see who's open for the mage slot here. So Sol, pretty powerful. She did take a nerf. I don't think she's the best mid laner, but she's very great at securing those mid camps with her 2. Clears away very quickly. Isis might be another good option there. Even Poseidon, you could get a big taunt off Athena into a Kraken. Ares really doesn't have any escape, so that Whirlpool Cripple can keep him isolated pretty well. Scylla even. So there's really a lot of options here to go ahead and look when you're coming to mid laner or jungler. So again, it's going to be up to the players that you're with, what they want to play. But let's say that we have someone who wants to play Poseidon, so that's fine. They go ahead and lock in Poseidon. Now as a jungler, you're really going to want to take a look at what's going to complement Poseidon and Athena very well, or what's going to counter Aries and Neith very well. So you could look at something like a Wheelix. Wheelix would be very strong against Neith. If she ever goes to backflip, you can go ahead and alter. Does an incredible amount of damage. And a lot of times, Neith will beat something before they backflip, which makes it a little bit easier to pull off in this meta. Also, root someone in place, so if Poseidon wants to go ahead and get a big Kraken off, you could set him up for that. Other examples here, Kali might work. She's a late game god. If you want something more late game oriented, Fenrir, you could set up big Krakens. Has very good early game contest there. Najah, Thor even, Serket, lots of options there. So again, it's all about what you want to draft. If you want to get more global presence, you could get Thor here, and great, it's a great pick. Nothing wrong with that. If you want more bursts and you just want to blow up gods, you can pick a Najah. But I'm just going to pick whoever here, and I'll say we want Fenrir. So, going back over on the enemy team here on the Chaos side, now we have a lot of options we could pick here, because we only get one pick and then we start to ban things. So, we can go for a jungler, we can go for a mid. We probably don't want to go for a solo laner so soon, but you could always go ahead and pick up something strong like a Bellona that does well against anyone, or a Tyr. Could offer a lot of disruption in team fights, but it's kind of weak against Poseidon. So things like that are what you want to look at. So let's say that we want to go ahead and get our assassin here and our jungler and see who might counteract a Fenrir, Poseidon, and Athena. So they have a lot of global presence there. So Thor might be a good option to go ahead and counteract that Athena, work with the Neith, and maybe give some walls for Aries to give him a little bit of breathing room. So that would be a pretty good option. So we'll just say we go ahead and pick Thor here. Now for the bans, you might want to look to take away an ADC from the enemy team or a solo laner. The issue when it comes to banning a solo laner or ADC is that there's a lot of hunters, as you can see, and there's a lot of solo laners. So targeted bans here don't always work the best. It might just be who you don't want to play against or who you think your team might struggle against. So you might want to ban Bellona just because she's a good solo laner. There's really not a lot of comps where Bellona doesn't work in or offers something for it. So you might just take out Bellona. Enemy team might say the same thing. I don't want to deal with the solo laner that's going to wreck my team, wreck my backline, so they might take away Tyr. Now you'll actually get another ban here on both sides. Just the website hasn't been updated for this. But let's say normally Guardian bans would be a thing, but we've already picked the Guardians. A lot of times if you haven't picked the Guardian in that first pick ban stage, the enemy team is going to get rid of all the Guardians. So it actually helps to pick it up early, but a lot of times no one wants to pick up the Guardian because the guy who's last pick doesn't want to play a Guardian. So you just got to kind of deal with that, and I got to stop banging on the desk because I know the microphone's going to pick up all of this. Okay, moving on. So at this point, we get a pick. Well, we would do two bans here. So let's just say that we ban out some hunters. Let's say we banned out Hoi and Medusa. Medusa would actually be a great ban because Athena Medusa combo can be very strong, and there's a lot of setup for Medusa combo. So, imaginarily, what you would normally do here is we'd have those two bans, and now we have a pick here. So we're probably going to want to take an ADC at this point. We have an Aries, doesn't have strong lane clear, so we definitely want an ADC with strong clear to complement that. Now, with Medusa and Hoi off the table, not too many options here. I would probably go for an pardon me, we actually already have a Neith. I'm lit. So, ignore everything I just said there because we already have an ADC. So we would have banned mid laners. So let's just say that the bans are, we'll say Agni and Isis. Those were the bans. I don't know why they'd be banning Isis. Now you know what? Let's just say it's a Medusa on this side and an Isis on this side. Perfect. Okay. Medusa is on Chaos side. Isis is on this side. So we're picking our god here. We want to go ahead and pick a mid laner. Isis has been taken off the table since it's a strong counter pick to Poseidon. So we're going to look at something that's not going to struggle against Poseidon or Fenrir. So things that we probably won't want to pick. Ra. Not very mobile. Pretty easy for him to get stuck in a Kraken or get bitten by Fenrir. Who else wouldn't we want here? Kronos, kind of the same thing. Could very easily get blown up in a Kraken before a rewind. Probably don't want to play him either. Zeus, again, same thing, not very mobile. We might want to look at something like Scylla. Scylla, her clear is not as good as Poseidon's, but with items like Doom Orb, she can definitely set up some huge plays. She has some setup with a Neath Root, Aries Chains, and the ultimate, and a Thor Stun. So it makes it a little bit easier for her to hit her ult and do some consistent damage. And now on this side, what we're going to want to go ahead and do is pick up our solo laner and ADC, our last couple picks here. Now, for an ADC, we have Athena, has really strong clear. We're probably going to want something to complement that. We'll say we go with Apollo. He has global presence. Their fighting is going to be pretty even. Athena's going to push a little bit harder than Aries. However, Neith's going to push a little bit harder than Apollo. Apollo has great boxing options there and has a much stronger late game, I would say, than Neith. But he does offer some global presence to kind of keep up with the Neith and the Thor ult. Lastly, here's a warrior. It could be whatever your solo laner wants to play. Generally, it's always best to save the last pick for your warrior, even though they're going to be able to counter pick it here. And, I mean, let's just say that you want to go ahead and play Osiris. Solid pick. He sets up stuff there. Very tanky. Nothing wrong with an Osiris. Last pick here, we're going to get something. We could pick something to counter Osiris. There's not really a lot of options left. You can pick Chalk, clear the wave instantly. Same kind of goes for Vamana. None of them really have the best boxing potential against Osiris. He's probably going to win that lane straight up if you try and fight him. If you just clear the wave, you should be fine. But you're probably going to want something to set up your Scylla. Now, Chalk doesn't really offer very much. Vamana doesn't offer very much. But you might want to go for something like an Odin. Now, Odin, laning feed is pretty straightforward. Burn ball the wave. That's it. You're really not going to fight Osiris because he's going to wreck you between his passive and having more cooldowns more regularly and better auto attack ability. But think about this. Odin, he is going to be able to get Athena, Poseidon in a cage pretty consistently. And he's also going to be able to cage Osiris and Apollo. Now, both of those guys would need to ult to get out. So Fenrir is the only person who could really readily escape the cage. So it's actually offering a lot of setup there in the aspect that he can cage people in for a Scylla ult. He can cage people in and make a Thor ult a little bit easier to hit. And you really can't beads that or anything. So you're kind of locked into that, getting maybe an Aegis or should I say Sanctuary as a second item. So I think that would be one of the better picks that you could get there. Then you could also get like a Xingqian or a Sobek and have a tankier team. But again, it's up to whatever you want to draft. So that's just kind of an example of how you might want to draft, how you might want to look at picks and bans. Now, we could also look at some examples of things you might want to avoid here. So we'll go ahead and we'll do some random bans here. And let's say that we're the first pick team, and for whatever reason we haven't banned Raven, which is someone you really don't want to play against, and the enemy team gets Raven. And now it's your turn to pick things you really don't want to do. Let's say that someone really wants to play Aries on your team. So they play Aries. And you want to pick a hunter to go with Aries, and your hunter really loves to play Artemis. Now, there's some good things to this lane, there's some bad things to this lane. That lane's going to have a really hard trouble pushing anything and a really hard time if they get ganked. Their escape is pretty much blow ults and try and walk away after it. Your clear isn't going to be very strong because Aries only has one ability to clear wave. Artemis only has one ability to clear wave. And they're not the most easy to hit abilities. So like Artemis, for instance, if she doesn't already have push and she isn't able to melee those, or not melee, to auto attack those melee creeps, then she can't hit the archers and the melee creeps at the same time. So she's going to have a very difficult time clearing. Her mana could be an issue, so she's going to be forced into Transcendence, which she needs to stack. So if she gets pushed to tower and she's losing creeps to tower, she's going to lose gold. She's not going to get stacks on Transcendence. You're not going to get any lane pressure. Ares isn't going to be able to do anything. Ares will fall behind. So it could be this big steamroll of ineffectiveness. Now, it's not to say you can't just poop on the lane and win it. You can do that, but it might not be the best draft that you could do. Other examples. We'll do some random bans again here. Let's say the other team, they want Khepri, and they think Khepri is a very contested pick, but let's say you also left like Quan open. So now, even though you got Khepri, you probably have the most consistent execute in the game, the easiest one to get someone out of a Khepri ult and execute them. So again, you want to think about these things when you're picking and banning, and think about how to counteract the enemy team and how to pick your team. I think if you can do this well, it's going to give you a lot of success. If you look at SWC this year, a lot of people think that Epsilon won their games based on their draft. Obviously, those are top levels of play, so if they won on the draft, that's saying a lot of how important the draft is. So if you draft well, it's going to increase your chances of winning. So hopefully these tips, they help you out a little bit. If it's your first time in League, if you're a little bit confused about what's going on this season. So hopefully helps you out. Hope you enjoyed the video, and have a great time in League and Smite. Take care, guys.